nice. Look at the wisteria on that. So anyway, since we're on the subject of wisteria, I can now get back to the earlier topic which I began. This is called Thames Path. So maybe I'll try and keep this thing called Thames Path. That might be interesting. And it gets you to Bishop's Park in 1.5 miles, Putney Bridge, which my first wife called Putney Bridge, is in 2.25 miles. I don't know I'll make it that far. I should probably keep an eye on the time and make sure that I'm coming back at the right kind of time. I've got some bottled water in my pocket and I'm carrying some stuff in this kind of canvas small briefcase just in case I decide to sit down and do a bit of gold listing and that. I've got my stuff here for that. So yeah, what I wanted to talk about though is the zones. They're called the Hardiness zones. If you want to know about them, look them up on Wikipedia. The Hardiness zones, and it was first of all done in America. The United States Department of Agriculture made some criteria related to, you know, zones of which plants would take this much frost for this length of time. And there's certain signature plants which, if you can see them there, you know you're in such and such a zone. Those are different for America than in Europe. And obviously, certainly, as you can imagine, oh, that's big. When they get their wings out and start, you know, I can smell the sea on that. I can smell seawater on that river water there. You can almost tell that it's mingled in with. That's just a kite there, not some great bird of prey hovering over. Somebody on that boat is, or on the pier there, they obviously managed to fly that kite off there. It's just maintaining a steady course, I think, which is just as well, because you couldn't really run with it much in. Oh, I get it. It's actually up on a fishing rod, which is attached to the top of that mast. So it's never going to fall down far anyway. Even if the wind falls, it'll just fall down to almost the level of the boat. That's how they've done it. It's quite interesting. There's the bridges. So nice little park here by the side of the Thames. And yeah, I don't like walking the same way there and back again, so when I go back in the other direction I will pick a different route. I go back at about, I suppose I better start turning back from wherever I might be. I'll probably start turning back at 3:30, and right now it's 2 o'clock. And because where their cars parked is right bang on top of a metro station, or an underground station as they call it here, it won't be at all difficult to find the way back. I've got water with me and what have you. I can't talk for too long at a time because I'll just run my battery down. There might be interesting things later. But yeah, the Hardiness zones. Why I wanted to mention those, that I've been thinking about them a little bit recently. The thing is, Warsaw, that the more plants that you can have, I mean, usually in the main, you need that zone, or the plant is best at, or maybe one or two higher. You can't go lower than it. So if you consider that London is a 9, that's because it's warmer inside of London. There's less frost in London because there's so much going on. It keeps it a bit warmer. but around London it's an 8, so it's different climate in London to, for example, Hemel Hempstead is 8. So I'm not sure that the ceanothus that we saw earlier would be such a great bet in Hemel Hempstead. I'd imagine that in Hemel Hempstead, because it's in a valley, there would be places in the south-facing part of the valley where you could get away with ceanothus, but other parts where you wouldn't. But as you get further north on the other side of the Chilterns, for example, well, if anybody's listening from over there and they've got ceanothus, let me know. Maybe I imagine that the further you go, the more you're really dependent on microclimate to whether that one will work or not. And sometimes you'll discover that it will be there okay for a few winters, and then you'll get a nasty winter and it'll just give up the ghost, and you'll have a dead plant that's already quite big, and it'll be sadder than if it hadn't taken off from the beginning. So obviously I live in Warsaw, and even with the new job in Russia I shall still be based in Warsaw. But the problem with Warsaw is it's 6, and it's 6A for that matter, so it's low 6. 6B is the part of Poland which is more Poznan kind of area. But you only get to 7 in one part of Poland, and that's actually up to the north of Szczecin, in a place near Gryfice and Wolin, those areas there. Just a tiny little bit of Poland is actually in the 7 zone, which comes across and encompasses a lot of northern Germany, where they have also, a range of plants that they can plant, which is more similar to that of England. 8 is, places like, still Belgium has it, most of France is an 8. You get down to Spain, you're into the 9, and you get into the certain periphery. The Scilly Isles, as well as London, by the way, is 9. And if you get into the periphery of Spain, these really hot parts of Spain like Palma and what have you, and in Portugal, most of that is 10. So you can find there all sorts of interesting palm trees and things, Mediterranean style plants, and of course 10 is most of Sicily other than the high part, and the bottom part of Italy, most of Cyprus. Cyprus is possibly even Nicosia is 11. Istanbul is 9, because it's quite far south and it's maritime, but it's still closer to the continental landmass. So it's interesting. It's all about how much. It's not about how hot it can get in the summer, it's about how cold it doesn't get in the winter, the hardiness zone. And that's the main thing that determines whether something like this beautiful wisteria will grow in your garden or it won't. And I think that wisteria's obviously looking very nice in a 9 climate like that of London, or a 9 hardiness zone, whereas it would probably be quite fine as well in an 8. And you might even push and get one in a 7, but 6, you don't see that in Warsaw. So that means it won't grow there, because if it would grow there, then they would grow it. Obviously it's a beautiful plant and people will grow it if they can. I ought to be able to tell you which bridge this is, oughtn't I? Because it's quite interesting looking. However, in order to tell you that, I'm going to have to look it up, so bear with me.